staying still, digressing. Um, for the past couple of years, the theme has been dumbing down. A lot has been dumbed down. Conversations, education, foods, interaction. Um, Things are just being watered down. Quality isn't there. You look at customer service. Look at the quality of our clothes, our meals. It's so on and so forth. I mean, fast food, frozen foods, you know.
GMOs and
Yeah.
all that extra stuff.
Come on. I mean, there are a class of people who don't eat food that's ever been frozen when it comes to meat and all of that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, think that over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had a conversation with a young lady, you know, because she would be picky with things, and then I watched her go to the corner store and get a fish sandwich from what they call like the Poppy store,
Right.
and I said, she would be like, if she wouldn't want to eat food from the corner store, and then when I say food from the corner store, I mean like water. She think, and then when I say corner store, I mean like neighborhood markets and certain markets she would pick and choose.
Right.
So I said, well, what is the significance of going in there to have them fix you something to eat? You didn't even see that meat that came out the freezer for that sandwich. You don't know how long it was in the refrigerator. Probably didn't have an expiration date on it at all.
Right.
You know, but you did it because you were hungry.
Right.
But then you just discriminated about this bottled water that I'm drinking. I mean, I'm trying. I don't really, don't understand. But a lot of times we do things and don't even know why we do it. I mean, it's just so traditional. It's
Yeah,
just,
well,
it's a shame.
there's a lot of programming, you know, when they call about a TV program or put you in some kind of a program, they're kind of, my personal opinion is that they're kind of experimenting
Yes.
to see where they can take you or how far they can take you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you watch those commercials and they do the medication,
Okay.
and then they give you a long list of negative effects that you might just run into because you had a headache and you took this particular medication.
Right.
So now you have to worry about heart attacks, blood
Mm-hmm.
pressure,
Mm-hmm.
a dozen different things. And 2 years later or a year later, you also see the lawyer come on TV
Wow.
to sue
Yeah.
that particular new
Yep.
technique or drug.
Yep.
So it's a vicious system,
Mhm.
and the problem is most people don't realize that they're in
The
a
medical practice. See, they're practicing.
system. They're practicing.
It's just like we were just talking about the projects. It was a
Right.
project.
See what they can do.
I mean, it's a rat race. I mean, when we look at all these facilities, the prisons, the schools, the projects, all these buildings and little areas, they kind of look alike. They resemble each other.
Right.
Military bases, like you said, originally, the projects were for individuals who were coming home from the war and trying to get their economics together.
Right.
All that stuff kind of look alike.
Very
When I
much.
first went to prison, went to Camp Hill, it kind of resembled like a low college atmosphere because you were going, everything wasn't in one building. You know, you went over here to child, you went over here to school, and it was just, and you see individuals just walking around. I mean, if we changed our clothes and put on regular clothes, it just looked like a college campus.
Wow.
You know, but it's just fenced in.
Right.
And once you're in the mix of it, you don't see the fences. You know, but of course you see the slave masters. You know, cracking the whip and making sure you go in whatever direction. But I mean, I think individuals by the masses should understand the importance of us being gentrified. And you use that word gentry.
Right.
I heard you use that. This is a food chain, and unfortunately, we are getting swallowed.
Right.
We are getting swallowed, and we have to put our flag down. We have to put our foot down, voice our opinion, and you know, in order to, you know, not be victimized, ongoing. And I took you through that block where a dozen homes are empty right now. For what reason, I do not know, but families live there.
Right.
You know, and it was low income housing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it befuddles me. It's like, well, why? you allowed them to stay, then why all of a sudden? You
Right.
know?
It seems to be very convenient at this point in time. But then
Mhm.
again, we heard about Plan Philadelphia. What is it called? Philadelphia Plan 2035, I believe it is. Right. So these folks are planning way in ahead, and it takes a certain kind of information to be able to
Mhm.
see where you are in the midst of their plan.
Yes.
And if you don't have your own plan, then you're really just kind of in a bad situation because now you're part of somebody else's determination, their
Mhm.
plan
Wow.
for
Wow.
themselves, which
Yeah.
is to be good for themselves,
Mhm.
but it may not be that good for us.
I see. I saw a quote somewhere that said, "If you don't plan for yourself, you become a part of someone else's plan."
Okay.
You know, and I mentioned to you, the powers that be and the system is ongoing planning for us. Tell you about when I was a youngster, a block away from my childhood school. The police officers. I don't remember whether or not they were in their uniform or not, but I know they were police officers. They set up tables, and as the children would leave the school, they were inviting them over to the table, giving away toys, coloring books, crayons. In exchange, they were taking our fingerprints.
Wow, that's deep.
That's heavy, right?
Yeah.
But mind you, um, most of the children weren't being ushered home by their parents. We just walked in groups, you know, and we would. And mind you, I said this was a block away from the school.
Right.
You know, I mean,
So this is normally the way you would go home from school.
mhm, mhm.
So whoever put that table there knew exactly what they
They
were
knew
doing.
exactly what they were doing.
Okay.
They knew exactly what they were doing. They were planning. You know, it wasn't a 2035 plan,
Okay.
but it was a, you know what I mean, a 10, 15, 20, 30-year plan in effect.
Right.
They were
right.
planning for the day like this.
Mhm.
They were planning for the year 2000, the year 1995.
Right.
You know, when individuals were going to be in a desperate situation, or maybe just exposed to media, exposed to a opportunity to do some kind of crime.
Right.
You know, that right there puts you behind the eight ball, because you're already in the system.
Right.
You're already in the system. You're a criminal and don't even know it, just because you gave up your fingerprint.
Mhm.
You know.
Well, I think you had a good point too. Now they kind of promote in the entertainment industry the criminal lifestyle as the lifestyle to really have, and
Okay.
that's something that, like I said, I'm a lot older than you. So back
Yes,
when
sir.
I was coming up, we didn't have that kind of influence. We just
Mhm.
had rather R&B love songs, and
Hmm.
it was a real big deal when we had James Brown record the song "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud."
Come on,
That was a
come on,
big one in
come on.
1970,
Mhm, mhm.
and then you might have had Marvin Gaye after that, around that time too. But other than that, it was just love songs. And if you did meet a gangster, he wasn't involved in the community the way that things are going on today. In other words, today it seems like everybody thinks they're a gangster, even if
Okay,
they're
okay.
nowhere near qualified.
I got you. I got you. What kind of fits into that conversation is the fact that I'm a member of the Nation of Islam. We wear suits, um, but it's supposed to be a business suit.
Okay.
You know, if, in my opinion, you're supposed to, you know, project this upright image. So you're supposed to have, you know, nice, clean business suits while we wear white shirts. But with that being said, this originated, you know, early 19th century.
Right.
Well, early 1900s.
Right.
So, I mean, you had that gangster theme, you know, folks wore big hats with a feather. You know, they wore the flashy shoes, and
Right.
you know, you had guys. You know, you had guys who they were being taken off of the streets and out of the prison, who had this quote unquote swag and style. You know, so you have a lot of people right now who may see that, and even me, my generation may see that suit or see this man in a, you know, with this little strut, somewhat, you know, and think gangster. You know, so a lot of times it's about not playing the part, you know, and trying to, you know, scratch away that image that has been portrayed and ingrained in the minds and the hearts and the souls of people.
Well, I think a big part of what you're talking about is perception. So, you know, again, if you go back in time, there was a time when people wore suits every day.
Come on.
Men went to
Come
work
on.
in a suit.
That's right.
Even if you had a very inexpensive suit, you could maybe wash it out and hang it up to dry, and you go back out in the suit the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Then the '70s came in, and then the leisure kind of a look.
A lot of
Right.
things got leisure.
That was in my personal opinion, that was when they trying to change the society a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and loosen up morals, family design, what was acceptable and not acceptable, and we're seeing a lot of that being fulfilled today, in that they're changing how people think, and by changing their thinking, they are able to better control them, or to move them to areas where they're less threatening to their plan.
That's right, and that's deep, and I often talk to young women, and I tell them from my own testimony. When I was growing up, the only women I saw wearing wigs and makeup and all this stuff were either prostitutes,
Right.
superstars, or church women.
Okay.
You didn't see everybody didn't have wigs and fake hair and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely know that.
Yeah. So when I see women, just growing up, and I would see women,
Mhm.
that was the projection that I had.
Right.
It was like either they're one of the three. And then as I got older, it just started, it just became very prevalent.
Right.
It's like, wow, and I just watched that wave that we talked about earlier. That wave just, it went from, now, when I was a youngster, a lot of the girls, they were big on, what was that movie with Diana Ross and all of them in it?
Lady Sings the Blues? Or?
No. It's like a song where they were singing. There was some girls singing or something like that. They just redid it.
Oh.
But anyway, then then the weave came in big, just the little weave, and it was, at the end of the day, it was just a piece. They had a hair piece just to fill in from where a girl might have got a short haircut or something like that.
Right.
Now they got this Goldilocks thing going on. They looking like, Cowardly Lion. I mean, and a lot of this stuff looks hideous.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, who actually told you that looked good?
Right.
And some of them, and I'll be frank, man, that stuff, I don't know if I'm allergic to it or what, man, but I get the sneezing, and
I don't blame you.
some of that stuff's like fried chicken, or, it's just,
Yeah, you're right, because I know when we were growing up back in the 60s and 70s,
Mhm.
it was basically, if you saw a gold wig, that was probably a hooker, on a black person. So that's all it was at that point in time.
Yeah.
It was just too
Mhm.
far a stretch
Yeah.
from who you were.
Mhm.
So that was like some kind of very unrealistic kind of thing. But as time has gone on, they've normalized a lot of stuff that if you were to go back in time, I couldn't imagine what they would do to most of the fat people wearing the fashions they're wearing
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
They probably would have put them in an insane asylum, or at least checked their sanity, because it's just that different now.
yeah.
A lot of the fashions, you're going to pay hundreds of dollars for something that looks like they were found in the ditch or in the sewer.
It's crazy.
Right. So they really figured out how
It's
to
funny.
really play people.
Yeah, man, I talked to an individual, he just got out of prison in the summer, and I talked to him. He was like, yeah, I'm struggling. This ain't me. He was talking about his outfit and all of that. He's like, yeah, bought these shoes at Payless. I said, brother, how much did you pay for them shoes? $35. I said, you paid $35 for a no-name shoe at Payless. You could have went somewhere like Ross, TJ Maxx, Burlington Coat Factory. Got a $20 shoe. In some cases, a $16 shoe
Right.
that was better quality. Not big on the name brand, but
Mhm.
sometimes these products, they stand by their name.
Right.
But he was so in his zone that if I can't have what I want, I gotta go to the left.
Right.
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
But if you just humble yourself, you just take, it's just.
But you know something? I'm just wondering. A lot of times if you watch TV,
Mhm.
you're constantly getting bombarded with these commercials, which
Yes.
are telling you that Payless is going to be the cheapest shoe. I guess that's what they're trying to tell you.
Mhm.
But if you really think about it, like you said, you go to Sears, you go to
Yeah.
Kmart, or
Mhm,
something,
mhm.
and you get the same shoe basically, probably. more
Yeah,
likely,
yeah.
At an even better price.
Crazy.
But again, with the fashion industry,
Mhm.
they've made it to the point where you're going to pay a couple $100s for something, maybe some sneakers, maybe a jacket, and it's out of fashion in 2 or 3 years, and you can't do anything with it.
You know, when I think back, I, I gotta thank God. I do. I every day I ceremoniously thank God. And when I say this, because my mind, to still be in my right mind, have my memory, um, my sanity.
Okay.
You know, I'm thankful for that. But what I'm saying is, and it's right on course what we're talking about. As a youngster, all right, I remember when the Fila shoe became big.
Right, right.
I was in maybe about the fourth or fifth grade. Well, just maybe the Fila name brand was big.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when you live in the inner city, we're mimicking either what the rappers are doing
Right.
or what the guy on the corner is doing, as far as style and flair and all that.
Sure.
Or maybe what your older
Brothers.
uncle or brother or something like
Okay.
that is doing. So when I say, now, the Fila name probably been around, but all we know is it was big in our little area.
Right.
So mind you, I wanted this shoe. This shoe may have been, now mind you, I'm about the fourth, fifth grade. To get a $90 shoe was like, boy,
Crazy,
you done
right?
lost your mind.
Yeah.
My mother took me to the store, bought me 2 pairs of the replica shoe, which was called Jump. Look exactly like the shoe.
Right.
I felt good.
Okay.
I had a red pair and a blue pair,
Mm.
identical to the shoe
Right.
that was, you know what I mean?
I understand,
So
yeah.
so early on I kind of understood, was not so much about being frugal or just, cheap, but I understood, the value
Right.
of something. And just as I would, as I got older, now I had an uncle who would always, around Christmas time, he would give us gift certificates
Okay.
to a store called John Wanamaker's, which is no longer there.
Okay, I remember
The
that.
building is there. I think it's still called the Wanamaker Building,
Right.
but the actual department store isn't. I would always save mine.
Okay.
And like in the summer, I would go get some outfits. And I would say, son, where you get the money from for that? I said, oh, I saved my certificates.
Yeah.
Because I would go and buy, Ralph Lauren this or Nautica that,
Mm-hmm.
And she would see it and she would say, I know he couldn't afford that with the money I gave him,
Okay.
and I would just save my certificates or something like that. Now, mind you, I was in an era in my life where, I was gambling, I was, peddling narcotics
Right.
at certain times in my life. But I did, save, these coupons. All the time I wasn't really doing it. It wasn't an ongoing. It was everyday hustling.
Right.
I mean, because it wasn't like drinking water. I wasn't. I didn't have that kind of heart. A lot of times when I backed up from the drug selling was when I found myself graduating where I needed to have individuals work along with me or work for me. And I really couldn't see myself chastising someone to keep the money right or to stay on the corner when I need them there, something like that. And these are individuals who I watched grow up. Their families watched me grow up. I might have had a crush on their sister, or their aunt might have, or their aunt or their sister might have had a crush on me, or I'm helping their grandma with groceries. It's like, how can I, chastise this young man for something petty,
Right.
something so insignificant? You know what I mean?
I understand.
And then then we gotta see each other's family. And mind you, this was going on around me. I mean, guys who, the family structure when I was growing up was so tight knit. I mean, most of the people, our mothers went to school together.
Okay.
Our grandparents played cards together, drank moonshine together, and all this old kind of stuff. You see what I'm saying? So I'm
Right.
watching individuals who grew up together, who sat and split up sandwiches together. Now they shooting at each other and they doing this, that, and other. They live within a block's radius from each other.
Right.
And mind you, as I explored the city, I noticed that it wasn't unique to my area. When you go to South Philly, guys are going to war, guys on 27th Street going to war with the guys on 25th Street. Guys on Ringo Street, they're going to war with the guys on Taylor Street. And mind you, these are neighborhoods that are practically family. A lot of times they are family.
Right. That's the same story.
They family.
Exactly. Everybody's somewhat related to some degree.
Yeah, and from my understanding, what I was told, Um, when we migrated from the South, everybody, most of the people went where a relative was living,
Exactly.
or you know what I mean. So these were um, normally Jewish neighborhoods, and that's who would rent to us, and things of that nature. So they would go, oh, so and so is where, Philadelphia. Oh, okay, I want. They looking like it's an opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and they're moving within a block from each other, or
Right.
they're renting from the same landlord. You know
Right.
what I mean? So
Right.
we're family,
Mm-hmm.
and this is crazy how the crime and how we just do one another. I mean, I even I mean, I see it. I see it in in my own family. So I mean, nothing surprises me um, when it comes to street activity, and it's going back to that food chain. It's going
Right.
back to that
Right.
cycle.
Well, we look at the gang war situation. A lot of gang wars, gangs started out as just groups of people,
Mm.
social groups that maybe partied together, hung out, and then when they put the money in it with the drug trade, that
Mhm.
kind of blew things out of control. So now a lot of what used to be a gang becomes just little crews of people attacking one another, and that's how you could destroy a people or a family by placing that money in there as an incentive to
Okay.
commit murder or to commit the worst of crimes. Crimes that you probably never would have thought of if that money hadn't been a part of the scenario.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I did hear that when I came to Philadelphia. I came here in '74, and they told me that people from different parts of the South went to different parts of the city.
Okay.
Like North Carolina may have went, I forget how it went. North Carolina may have went to one part of the city, like maybe North Philly,
Okay.
West Philly, might have been more
Wow.
Virginia.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and people are all coming from the same areas. And some people did try to make it up in New York, and if you didn't like New York, you might have fell back to Newark, you may have fell back to Philly, or you may have came just straight to Philadelphia.
Mm.
And the funny thing is that the little divisions that were existing at that time was just a matter of where you came from in the South and how you dressed. So you might have had a certain style of hat that you wore
Wow.
that was
Wow.
native to that group
Wow.
of people that moved to that part of the city.
Mhm.
And that was about as big as the conflicts went when I first came here in '74. People may have talked a little bit about each other, but it wasn't as hectic
Mhm.
or as bad as it is
Wow.
today.
It's funny, because growing up, and I would tell people my name, um, people would always jack my name up. And the funny thing is, this was what was so funny to me. All you have to do is say what I'm saying.
Right.
Don't say my name like you're reading it.
Okay.
And it's funny, people would say Jesse or Giselle. I said, just say what I'm saying, Jessel. All you have to, it's not that hard to say what I'm saying. But the point I wanted to make, people would say, oh man, that's that country name. And I never thought of it. It probably was a country name,
Okay. Okay.
But it's just, it's deep. And listening to what you're saying, it sounds a little gangish. And that's some of the things that I've seen, how the Philadelphia public school system has taken its turn, with all the colors. This school wears red. This school wears blue. You know what I mean? And then when you get out of school, now you communing, you getting on the bus, it looks like a gang.
Right.
We walking around, we got this. You know what I mean?
Right,
We've
right.
saw it, West Side Story. We've saw it with John Travolta and them on television.
Right.
Whatever that show was, they had their little, their little gear and you know what I mean, with their little alpha this and all of that kind of stuff.
Right, right,
So,
right.
yeah, I mean, it's just. And mind you, maybe I ain't supposed to know about West Side Story, all of that, but I like musicals.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, but
Matter of fact, don't feel bad when that play and the movie came out when we was young kids. We was all excited because that was somewhat of a ghetto scenario they were relating, and we did not
Wow.
get the chance
Wow.
to see hardly any of that
Mhm.
on TV or in the movies or anything
Okay.
else. So
Okay.
that was sort of an identification thing.
Okay.
But, you
Yeah.
know, we
Yeah.
ignored the music. We just
yeah,
like
yeah.
to share the
Well,
story.
I can say, I didn't go to some of the best schools that Philadelphia has to offer, but I did have some good teachers.
Okay. Good.
So I had some good music programs. You know, some of the other curriculums, they were good as well. So,
Okay,
I
good.
did get, some culture when it came to, my education. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I feel like I only graduated from fourth grade, but a lot of what I was exposed to, I was able to embody it, keep it, and use it when the time presented itself.
Okay, you've been very fortunate. Let me ask you this though: you dabbled in the street life, you did time. What was it that made you see things differently to change your goals and your perspective and how you live your life now as opposed to
Well, like I say, things in life. It wasn't one instance.
okay.
It was a process. Um, I went through times in my life where I took time out and said, "Oh, all right, well, I'm not going to do this the same way. I'm going to take," and I'll go to one period back in 1999. I said, I had bench warrants. I had, I was just up to my eyeballs in mud. Everybody I was around was just either drug dealers or drug addicts. I found myself, I said, I'm gonna take. I was knee deep in it. And I forget exactly why, but I found myself, the guys I was hustling with, went to the home, threw all the money on the floor on the carpet. This is a true story. I threw all the money on the carpet. I said, I don't want it no more. He said, y'all can have it. And in fact, a guy I was rolling with pulled a gun on me. He pulled a gun on me in broad daylight. We was all congregating around just, and no, we had an argument in front of my mother's home. And his response was, "Man, you don't know what I do to you." I said, "What? Do to who?" I said, when it come down to it, I said, I don't care about none of this. I turned around and pointed to my mother's home. I said, all I give a fuck about is that right there. And I pointed to my mother's home, and just so happened my little sister, I see her face pressed up against the screen, like she was listening to the conversation. And when I turned around and looked at him, he was like, he says, "Oh man, you right here fronting for these around here?" He was some group of guys who would hang out on the street. I'm like, this ain't no front. So man, you ain't gonna just tell me to my face what you would do to me. So some time went by, and we were on our scene, a couple blocks away. And well, I kind of asked him for a fair one. I said, "You my man, but we can fight." That's what I told him. I said, "You my man, but we can fight." So when we got a couple blocks away, he says, well, on our strip, he says, "What's up, man? You want to fight now?" I said, "Man, ain't nothing changed, man. I was high. I was still hot because it was still on my mind."
Right.
I said, "Man, ain't nothing changed. I go to, you know what I mean?" And my another one of my friends was there. Was like, "Man, y'all need to chill. Y'all need to chill." So I went in the store, got something to drink, came back out, and the guy I had the conversation with, he went in the trunk and pulled out a piece. I think either he pulled out the piece first, and that's when I said, ain't nothing changed or something. But he pulled out the piece, and I was like, "Ain't nothing changed." You know what I mean? So I said, "We can still," you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. I turned my head, and my son's mother had turned the corner, and she was like, "Come here." And when I turned around, he didn't have a gun no more. He put it back, and he was trying to play me. Now I said, "You see that dude just pull a gun on me?" He's like, "He ain't seen no gun. He high." So that instant, that was like, man, I was like. So later on that day, I threw all the money on the carpet. I invited him to my home, threw all the money on the carpet. I said, "Y'all can have it." I said, "I'm cool." He's like, what? I said, "Man, I'm cool." I said, I got to worry about a total stranger pulling the gun out me and doing something to me. I said, "Dude, y'all, I said, I be with y'all every day.
Right.
We out here doing this every day." I said, "I'm cool. Y'all can have it." I said, this was April 1999. I said, "I'm going to dedicate the next 30 days to finding me a job. I'm going to get my bench warrant squared away." By like the 13th of the month, I found a little job. I got schemed into a class.
Oh yeah.
One of them, we train you to work for the post office. One of the kind of
okay.
things.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I've seen those.
They schemed me. I got schemed into that. So that was the two things I was doing by the 12th, 13th of April. The job I had, I was working at. I was working with a company, parking company, down at the Veteran Stadium. Is no longer there. The office was in the basement of Veteran Stadium. I was down there working, probably making $7.50 an hour. Not even getting 40 hours a week, but It was something to do.
Right.
You know, and I took that time out. You know, so something I noticed when I did that, two significant things. One, people I would see every day when I was hanging with these guys, they wouldn't speak to me. Now people would see me walking from my home back and forth to Broad Street to get on the subway going to work. It's like, hey, Joshua, it was like I just came home from prison. It was like hey, my neighbors, I mean, just
Right.
people watching me grow up. They were speaking to me. It was like, I just saw you last week. You saw me standing, you just walked right past me now. It's, you know, so that right there, I noticed, I was like, and I started to scratch my head. I'm like, what was it? And after a while, I finally realized it wasn't me. It was just my circumstances.
Right.
Or it was who I was around that was unattractive.
Right.
And also, I noticed by that summer, those guys I was hanging around, they were getting involved in homicides. They were, you know, just off the grid.
Okay.
I'm like, damn, that could have been me. Could have been me.
Right.
You know, and mind you, I said this was 1999, 2000-ish. You know,
Okay.
here it is 2015. So it was a chain of events. As time went on, it was just like cutting away the fat, you know, to get a lean piece of meat right now. You know what I mean? So I would just chisel certain things away. But what brought me into the mosque was I found myself by myself. I found myself by myself physically, spiritually, and mentally. I found myself by myself. You know, I wasn't around people who I could have good, wholesome conversations with. I wasn't around people who wanted to do the work with concerns of righteousness in the community. I found myself with a pocket full of money, a new cell phone, and in a neighborhood that I couldn't just walk up and knock on somebody's door and say, hey, so-and-so there? So I found myself in a neighborhood bar. In my neighborhood bar. And it wasn't until I went outside, I got me a drink, got me a glass of wine, went to the door. I don't know if it was to see who was outside or what, or smoke a cigarette or some old crap. Minister Louis Farrakhan had the men out on Monday nights.
Okay.
This was a Monday night. I stuck my head out the door and I saw groups of men walking by. And a young brother put a paper in my hand, the Final Call newspaper.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I don't never remember seeing young brothers rolling with the fruit of Islam. But I would always read the paper. Whenever I got the opportunity to get the paper, I would always read it. So I went back into the bar to go read the paper, open the paper up, and I noticed I got a glass of wine in my hand. And I'm looking. I look around, no music on, no women in the bar. The bartender was even a man.
Okay.
The news was on the screen. Everybody in there over 50. I'm like, is this what my life came to? It was so real.
So like a light bulb kind of like went on at that moment.
I put the glass down. It wasn't even a glass. It was like a styrofoam cup. So I put the cup down and walked out with the paper and just went home. And then like 2 days later, I went to one of my elders' house. And he would always give me material. He was involved in the Garvey movement, OBM. Original Black Man.
Okay, you know,
Yeah.
okay. I believe is he still okay or
No.
he passed, right?
He transitioned on. He's among the ancestors now.
Yeah, because I'd heard of him and I'd heard some of his work. I would have liked to have met him, but
Oh wow.
but I would definitely like to look, see about the stuff that he helped publish a lot of important material, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, I believe he was a part of bringing lost information about our people's history here in this country and elsewhere.
Yeah, he did work closely with attorney Michael Cord.
Okay.
I remember they did some things called the We Did It, They Did It list.
Right.
So much more. I mean, I got to say, I met him when I just got out of prison. I met him in 2000. I got out in 2005. I met him in 2006. I was doing some real estate. I was doing some house flipping, and I was doing some light construction work and house cleanouts. And a lot of properties that I would clean out had valuable stuff. And the OBM had goods outside his house, just selling and giving away. So I would see him, and I used to hang down 8th and Diamond when I was a youngster. So he was on 10th and Susquehanna, and I would ride by and I would see him. Say, yo, he was approachable. how you doing? Mind you, I had my dreads growing, so it was kind of a click thing. Not a click, but we clicked.
Okay, I got you.
We just hit it off. I would just bring him stuff, and he's like, and I'm like, brother, I don't want nothing bad. He's like, no, brother, I'm gonna write everything down in the book, and you gonna get your share, and this, that, and the other. And as time grew, we built a relationship. I would meet individuals. I met most of the people that I know from the pro-black movement here in the city of Philadelphia through him. And I was just, I was a ball of fire, a humble ball of fire, because I would be at events, kind of just, stand to myself, and people, some people who did approach me, they would say, so brother, what do you do? And I think I told you this, at that particular time, I wasn't doing anything. It was like, I don't do nothing, you know what I mean? Or if I did say, I'm in the real estate, I really couldn't give an in-depth conversation. I really couldn't give knowledge or background concerning what it was that I did. So it was kind of like I was shit talking or jiving, so I would really, refrain from those kind of conversations, but nowadays, right now, I am trying things. I'm doing a lot more. So hopefully that answers your question, but I just kind of, it took some, it took some things.
It's like a growth thing,
Yes.
Growth and development. You got to a certain point and you made certain decisions, which are good. But I think that most people make those kinds of decisions because of the kind of heart that they have. Maybe sometimes in their early upbringing, or maybe just in who they are, period.
Okay.
They have a tendency to they got a loving heart to do good.
Yes.
So they would like to find some way to do good works, and this might be one of the avenues that you take it.
Yeah. Okay.
When I did get a chance to, we did a little video shoot last week, and you were showing us the neighborhood, how much it's changed, and you also mentioned what you'd like to do in terms of urban gardening, I guess you could call it.
Yes, sir.
And you also mentioned aquaponics, and I know you have like a small property in a certain area that you're looking at.
Yes, sir.
Maybe you could give us like a little, kind of a brief introduction to what you have on the radar.
What brought about the idea? I happened to go on a trip, like an excursion, with a group of individuals who do urban gardening. Some Muslim sisters that I know.
This is here in Philly?
They are here in this region. They are here locally. Some are in Philly. Some are in surrounding counties and things of that nature. But this particular trip was through the counties. They went from here, Philadelphia, to Chester, to Lancaster County, over to Renton, and like hopscotched.
Okay.
Went out to Cheney University, and ultimately there was this area, a park. There's a park in Reading where they have this setup. They took one of the buildings that was in the park and turned it into a greenhouse. They have the aquaponics set up in there, and it's just an ecosystem in there. And I was like, wow, I want to do this. I'm like, I want to do this. Now, mind you, when I was in a juvenile placement, I was in a place called Youth Forestry Camp, and they had you had to perform certain goals in order to complete and get out of this program. You had to run 300-something miles. You had to do certain activities. We did mountain climbing and rappelling. There were certain criteria that you had to complete in order to get out of this program. Well, you had a certain amount of time to do it as well. You would go before the judge, and the judge would determine, whether you would be released or how things would go from there. But I mentioned this because I said to myself, there's a lot of individuals, well, they're planning to send a lot of their youth to prison. Prison is not the key. Warehousing individuals is not the answer. If we can give them some skills, if we can take their mind out of prison. I understand it's already on the law that you got to put them somewhere as far as a sentence. So if we're going to send them somewhere, let's put them somewhere where they're going to get some skills. And if we can implement this program, and even in the public school system, and I think I mentioned that in one of our past interviews, this farming, gardening, the education is right in there. The mathematics, the sciences,
Right.
you know, the social studies, the arts.
Mhm.
It's all there. There's no way around it.
Right.
You know, there's no way around it. So anybody who says it's not a good idea, but knows what education is about, they're lying.
Yeah.
They just don't want to do it.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? They
I
just don't
understand
want to
that.
do it. There's no way around it. You know?
Well, maybe you can give, because maybe everybody that's going to see this video may not know too much about what aquaponics is
Okay,
or
okay.
any of that. So maybe give
Okay.
like a 1, 2, 3 quick, easy bake
Okay.
breakdown.
Well, from what I've learned concerning the aquaponics, it's where, like I said, an ecosystem. And you know, it's a funny thing, you know, just when you're in school and you're being exposed to some of these words and terms and things of that nature, none of it really resonates when you're living in the inner city life. It's just like when you're taking a driver's test, when you're studying to get your driver's license. Most of the material that you read is for country driving,
Right.
rural living. You know, a lot of those signs and symbols you will never see in the city of Philadelphia.
Right.
But you have to learn it in order to pass the test.
Okay.
Well, you have to study the material because you never know what's going to be on the test.
Right.
But not to stray from your question. What I've observed and understood in the aquaponics, you have the fish, the water,
Right.
and it's kind of it's recycling back around into the plant life,
Okay.
and everything is just feeding off of each other,
Right.
and you know, just whatever minerals that's in this water, and it's going back into the soil and in the plant life that's being grown. I mean, you know, it's just kind of bringing the wilderness right to you.
Right.
It's bringing and you don't have to do nothing to it.
Right. It kind of
You know,
operates. If you set it up right, it kind of takes care of itself.
It takes care
right?
of itself. It takes care of itself. And the funny thing is, it's life,
Right.
and it's and it reproduces rapid, and it does its own thing.
Right.
You know, you don't really you shepherd it, so
Right.
to speak, but you just sit there and you kind of witness God.
Exactly.
You witness God manifesting right before your eyes.
And what I find interesting about that, like I said, I grew up in the project, so we really didn't have any kind of horticulture or any of that kind of plant growth, any of that.
Okay.
You had a little bit of grass outside, or maybe Central Park down the street. But when I got to Philadelphia and I finally got my first home, and we were able to do a little backyard garden.
Okay.
And I was amazed that just a little bit of dirt, some water, some seeds.
Mm-hmm.
We had so many tomatoes the first year that I was just giving tomatoes away. We had too many. And then you look at, when you go to the supermarket,
Mhm.
at the price of a tomato, it's a no-brainer. If you can grow your own,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
why
sir.
not? Same
Yes,
thing
sir.
with fish. The price of fish today,
Right. Right.
same thing.
Come on now.
It's a very special day when you get fish in the market. But if you can grow, like, what is it, tilapia? I think that's a very popular one.
That was the fish that I witnessed.
Okay.
The tilapia. I've heard some people are, you know, doing some other fish, catfish, so on and so forth. But yeah, and then you mentioned the tomato. For the past 2 years that I've been doing the hands-on, you know, urban gardening, tomatoes and the peppers grow so rapidly.
Right.
Now this is what I noticed. When I would buy tomatoes from the store, the shelf life was like a couple of days.
Right.
When I grew my own, they last for weeks.
Not only that, you have actual flavor in that garden tomato.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nothing. There's no comparison.
Absolutely,
No.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. But I mean, it just blew my mind.
Right.
I mean, whether in my refrigerator or out of the refrigerator, these tomatoes last
Okay.
for over a week, and I just noticed like because a lot of times I'd be running,
Mhm.
ripping and running, and I wouldn't really take time out for myself.
Right.
So I would have the fresh groceries, and you know, and literally watch them wither away.
Right.
But I noticed the difference between what I grew and what I bought.
And what's beautiful about it too is not only that you know what you've grown because you know what you put in the soil, the
Yes.
pellets, or the
Yes.
you know everything that went in there. But with that supermarket, you probably don't think about it, but where did that fruit come from? Was it shipped in from Costa Rica?
Come on now.
Was it shipped in from, you have no idea. What conditions was it grown under?
How many hands did it touch before it got to you?
Exactly. And not only that, how many scientists were playing games with the DNA of that fruit? Because I hear you can mix animal DNA with the fruit now. So you might have frog and broccoli combined so that the broccoli will actually last longer.
I heard somebody mention something about mice tomatoes. I'm like, a mice tomato? I'm like, what?
It doesn't seem like the scientist has any boundaries. He's going to do whatever's going to work, and the commercial company's going to do whatever it takes to make money. So
I've gotten magazines in the mail about buying seeds, and little plants, dwarf plants, and stuff like that. They do it all. They've got trees that grow 2 and 3 kind of fruit.
Right. I've seen.
I mean, it's amazing. That
They graft the trees together, and you can have apples, oranges, peaches at
all
the same
on one
time.
tree.
Yeah.
Wow. Come on.
Right. And I think if you look in the Bible, it tells Israel, which is a message for everybody else too, that not to mix these things together. Whatever seed is let it bear its own seed and continue in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were very careful in those days to separate the different crops.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get that cross contamination. You wouldn't end up with some of the odd stuff that we have to eat nowadays out of the supermarket, commercial food.
It's crazy. I got a joke that I tell, and a lot of times I say it to sisters. For some reason, I'm a particular kind of individual. But I would say, no matter how much I ask for orange juice, you always try to give me lemonade. And life does that to me. I don't know what it is about me. I don't know what it is. And for for the most part of my life, I've been humble, observant. And then when I speak out, people look at me like I got 3 heads. Like, did this man just say that? That's the kind of, that's the kind of, look that I get.
Right.
And it's just funny. I mean, I'm just, and I'll use the example. I would go to this breakfast store, and they would have individuals in it who weren't really waitresses. You have people from the recovery community just trying to survive, get a job. And one morning I go into the store and I place an order. And the lady comes back and checks on me. I said, "Ma'am, I'd like to alter my order." She said, "Okay, sir. What would you like to do?" So I make a change. So when my meal comes back, now it's messed up. So I have a problem. So the person I'm with, they says, well, first of all, you shouldn't have said, why you didn't just say change your order? Why you got to say alter and this, that, and other? I'm like, alteration is a change. I'm like, but these people, they don't, don't understand that. I said, first of all, she's not a waitress. You know what I mean? So, well, then if you knew she's not a waitress, then why would you? I'm like, all right, so if that's the case, why are we here? Why did we come here to eat?
Right.
We shouldn't have came here to eat in the first place. Number one, they selling margarine, telling people it's butter.
Ah, okay.
It's so much about the place in itself that we disagree with. And I'll think back to the past. One day I went to a steak place, and it was I and my girlfriend, and you had to you order in a line. And every portion of the line you go, you tell them what you want on the sandwich, then you pay. So, in my mind, this is the Kevin Hart thing. In my mind, I'm getting a feel that the individuals taking our order know that we are together. But at the end of the day, everything's separate. So after she orders, so the gentleman say, "Sir, can I help you?" So I said to him, I said, "Yes." In addition to that, talking about her order, because I'm paying, everything's together. I said, in addition to that, I'd like yada 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 yada. So she turned around to me. She said, "Here you go with this in addition to. You always got to be this in addition to, mother." So I'm like, oh man, I'm like,
win.
Huh?
You can't win, huh?
I'm like, she's like, "Yeah, we in North Philly, and here you got to talk with that in addition." I'm like, but this is how I talk. I mean, if I gotta, it's just like, because sometimes I have not mastered the gray area in life. For so many years I've been all or nothing. I've been either hot or I've been either cold. So in my mind,
right.
If I get down and ghetto and talk, people are going to disrespect me, or people are going to do something. When I'm dealing with my food, so I want to be as nice and clear as possible. when ordering my meal.
Right.
Sir, in addition to that, this is what I like, X, Y, and Z. I'm thinking I'm going to get the best of service when I act this way.
Right. You should. No,
I
you
should.
would. Right. Right.
You know, but it's,
But sometimes you can get resentment, you know, a little blowback.
mhm.
But like you said earlier, there's no need to be anything other than yourself, and especially the best that you can be.
okay.
I think what they've done to a lot of our folks is they made doing bad seem like it should be normal.
Okay.
So that if your home is not in good order, if your life is not in good order, then you're part of the community. And
Yes.
once you begin to kind of like clean yourself up and dust yourself off and take goals that are not just what they've been already set up for you, now you're becoming a little uppity. And this is coming from our own people.
Wow. Wow.
It's very different because there was a time when you tried, when your parents sent you to school to learn to be better than the situation that they came from. Now I'm going back a little bit because my mom was one of the folks that came up from the South
Okay.
in the 50s.
Okay.
So when she's coming up to New York, they're getting away from what do they call it, sharecropping.
Okay.
So
Okay.
whereas as a little child, you're going out into the field trying to help the adults pick cotton or tobacco,
Yes.
and that was supposed to be your life
Your
till
job.
it was over.
Wow. Wow. Come
So
on.
the older folks told them, listen, pack this little cardboard suitcase, here's some chicken and some potato salad, go north, get a job, and see what you can do. And that's what we were living off of, I'd say up until about the 70s.
Wow.
When
Wow.
something happened.
Wow. My bones just clinked together.
Okay.
Man, when you said pack a suitcase, get some chicken, some potatoes, you know, and go north for opportunity, man. It's,
Right, that's what it was back then, because there was nothing that much happening,
Wow.
unless you were maybe related to certain people.
Mhm.
And in a certain sense, there's a lot of that still going on. But something happened in the thinking of the community. I would say that we got into a place that opportunities shrank, and we became more or less like a depressed person would be, and
Well,
maybe kind of worked against ourselves too.
I think a part of it that has added on to what you said, as far as us and the people, and I'll say Philadelphia, we're overcrowded.
Right, right.
We're packed in amongst each other, just so packed in. It's a shame. I mean, you have so many people living in a house, in a household. I mean, you have, one. I just got on a bus, and 9 out of the 10 of the women got on had multiple children with them. You know what I mean? So if you have, I mean, I'll look at my mother and her siblings. I mean, she has about 6 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
So I mean, if you have 6 different people and all have children, I mean, you just came out of this one household.
Right.
I mean, when I grew up, I lived in the, I mean, the joke, I said, I never lived in a household with one bathroom. We had multiple bathrooms. We had a big house. I grew up in a 6-bedroom home.
Okay.
I mean, it was housing authority. 6-bedroom home. Always lived around family.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Always been, the family's always been there. But I mean, it's a crowding. It's overcrowding right now. And right now, when we even get back to talking about food, even the supermarkets in the areas, these markets are due.
Right.
I mean, Fresh Grocer, that's new. That Progress Plaza has been without a market for over a decade, I think. Pathmark up here on Glenwood Avenue, that's new. When I was growing up, I think it was the Shop and Bag that it was over here on the other part of Glenwood.
22nd Street.
Yeah, around there.
Somewhere in that case.
I mean, and I mention this because it's a college community now.
Right.
So now we have more people, not only to compete with for jobs, but we have for food.
Right.
These places don't open up or don't bring us the food. Where are we getting our food from?
Right. Well, that's a good point you're bringing. I'm gonna just mention this real quick. When Fresh Grocers first opened up, it was really nice because I live in that general area. We're a couple blocks away, and then the quality seemed to slip, pick back up, and now I believe one of the ShopRite or one of those chains purchased it.
Really?
And you can tell the difference in the quality of the food. So it's kind of like you make 2 steps forward and then 3 steps going backwards. But I think back to your idea of kind of like grow your own fresh vegetables
Right. Yes.
and fish. if we can get that going, that would make a big difference because now instead of having to pay a lot of money to eat every night, you can eat good food that you knew where it came from.
Come on now.
And it's non-GMO, and it's right in your neighborhood. You probably can do one house like that every block or two houses, you know, and you can probably do it on various levels of scale, whether it's a small personal setup or something that's like a factory.
Yes. I mean, even with the urban gardens and the lots, I mean, a garden on each street can practically, you know what I mean, help feed the block.
Right. That's like I
You know?
said. My little garden was maybe 4 by 4 feet, and we were flowing with tomatoes. It was ridiculous. And I actually after that point, I didn't plant as many because I saw how easily. And this is basically it's called like a freebie because the investment is so small, and it's really and I think it would be really good. But I think what one hurdle we may have to overcome is getting people to eat real food that didn't come out of a can or out of a frozen package or out of some kind of a microwave bag. That might be the only major hurdle.
Absolutely. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's worth it. It's worth
I think
the
it's worth
challenge.
it,
It's
too.
worth the investment. It really is. We have to put the same method that they put in these negative images into our people. We have to put the positive images into them.
Okay.
Whether it be social media, television, cable, signs and symbols, whether they're on
Right.
shirts. And I engage with the youth. One of my chants now when I get around youngsters, I say, "Come on, repeat after me." And they'll get into it and say, "We don't drink,
Okay.
we don't smoke, we awoke." Come on, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we awoke. We don't drink, we don't smoke, we awoke. So I know that group of 4 or 5, they all might go to different schools.
Right.
When they go to this class, for some reason he might just bust out with this chant.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then they'll share it.
That's beautiful.
And I just mentioned that. And I don't know where I heard it from. I just heard it somewhere, and I happened to be with the brothers with the paper, and I was talking to some youth, and as I departed from them, I said, "Look, repeat after me." You know. And the funny thing is, sometimes men walking around in suits, no children be like, "Hey, that's Obama," or something like that, and you'd be sitting because just the imagination of the child is just so vast.
Right.
But when I talk to them, I try to talk to them about food. I say, look, some of them that I talk to repeatedly, they're like, "Brother Jessel," or they might just say, "Mr. Jessel," or "Jessel, give me a lesson for the day."
Yeah.
And I just got to think real quick to tell them something. And now I talk to them about eliminating stuff that's white from the diet. I tell them if the food had a parent, you shouldn't eat it. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Okay.
And I give them say you are what you eat. Are you a pig? Are you a cat? Are you a dog? You know what I mean? Don't eat them animals. And stuff like that. I mean it's hard because it's me versus their parent.
Right.
And a lot of times it's me versus their parents' budget.
True.
And it might be me versus that food stamp card. It's versus priority. And then at the end of the day, a lot of times it's laziness. And I hate to say it, but a lot of it's lazy. It's lazy shopping. I mean, because it's the upbringing.
Right.
Everything's so fast paced. Somebody, they want the quick fix. They want the one meal in the can.
Right.
I never like spaghetti and meatballs out of the can because I know the
You know
method. And you know what I mean?
You know what's going on with that. You have the
My mother tells me how, growing up, as a baby, my grandmother used to give me cornbread, buttermilk, fish and grits. You know what I mean?
Okay.
She's like, I used to eat that southern food from my grandmother.
Right.
And okra, all that stuff. I mean, I mention this because I know what a wholesome meal is, and when I say wholesome, I'm not saying healthy.
Right.
I know what a meal is.
A real
I
meal.
know how to cook.
Well, yeah.
So a lot of times, me getting a woman in my life is she's going to have to be a woman.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's going to have to, because I can, if I have to do it for myself, then I might as well be by myself.
Okay.
I need someone that's, do your part.
Well, she got to be on the same page with you, I would imagine.
Oh man, we got to be read
Same
from the
book?
same book. We
There
got
you
to,
go.
you know what I mean? And it's not a dart being thrown at women or sisters, but I mean I just kind of been given this chip on my shoulder with the lack of coming from women. I mean, because I love women. I love the woman, black woman, so much. And when I see less than, it's discouraging. It's hurt. It's
Well,
I share my sympathy in a wrong manner. I think I do. It comes out wrong. It really does.
Well, you know, it's funny that because when we talked about the sneakers, it was the same thing. Going back a little further, when I remember when Philly and Fila came out,
Okay.
and I think that might have been the connection because Philly was looking for something that kind of represented themselves.
Okay.
And I remember a lot of people, folks at the time were saying Philly, Fila, Philly. Fila.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so go back another 25 or 30 years before that, when I'm coming up and a little kid going to grade school, at the time you had skips, or what they call decks, which is just plain sneakers like you wore on a boat or whatever.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and then they had Pro Keds,
Okay.
and they had Converse.
Okay.
And then they just had rid of Skips, which is like no name
Okay.
brand.
Okay.
The peer pressure was enormous to have at least the Converse, if not the Pro Keds when that came out.
Mhm.
And you got harassed terribly
Wow.
if you had Skips or Decks. And
Wow.
that's that peer pressure.
Mhm.
And the same thing with a lot of the bad stuff we got into as growing up.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
peer group was saying that this is the way to go. We might want to see a movie like Superfly or something
Mhm.
like that. So we got that impression that, wow, this is the glamorous life.
Wow.
And then you listen
Wow.
to music.
Wow.
So it's not so much the sister's fault or the brother's fault that people that they're doing what they're doing. It's somebody's got a hold of their thinking and led them in a particular direction.
Mhm.
In Islam, they talk about you can't take something from somebody without giving them that replacement first.
Wow.
So
Wow.
if you want somebody to not eat garbage food, then you should at least have a meal ready for them that's sufficient and of the right quality.
Come on.
So we can work on that. You know, I don't think it's going to
Absolutely.
be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a matter of mind changing. And I've
Yeah,
seen
man,
it.
we gonna
I've
we
seen it.
I,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
we gonna do it. And then a lot of what I want to do or what we want to do, I'm gonna stop saying it. I'm gonna start saying we're gonna do this.
There you go.
We're gonna do it.
I think Nike had a nice one. Let's just do it.
Just
do
do
it.
it. Just do it. I mean, and the funny thing is, in my life, I noticed that I'm a worker. I like to see things all the way through. I like to see it done. I like to be thorough. I like organization. I'm probably one of the most unorganized individual that you may know. But I like organization. I like being prepared. Even though I may shoot from the hip a lot. But a couple of things stuck out while we were talking. One, you mentioned Superfly.
Right.
I got out of prison. Some guy was walking by. It was summertime. He was selling a winter coat,
Okay.
sheepskin coat.
Okay.
So I bought it. One day I just came to OBM's house, and it was cold. I had the sheepskin coat. He was like, "Look at you, Superfly." And mind you, he had a, he just maybe thought I was just being flashy or something like that.
Okay.
So he wanted to let me know
Right.
either how I looked
Right.
or don't get big headed or something like that. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
So, look at you, Superfly. He was coming from so it's kind of. But the other piece I wanted to mention, you talk about migrating from south to north and how the communities work. I remember one of my mentors told me, and in talking about, and it also relates to myself and how I kind of felt different. He said to me, he used to tell me stories about the neighborhood, North Philly, the neighborhood we walked through. And actually, we saw one of his businesses, film director, Andrew Nix. And mind you, I drove throughout the latter years of his life, he went blind. So I drove for him. I would drive him to work. And we talked. A lot of times he would fall asleep, but we talked. And he asked me, this is not what I want to say, but it was funny. He said, what kind of car are we in? Like, we in the Benz. He'd be like, well, turn the radio on. This was during Obama was running for office.
Okay.
He's like, turn the radio on. I want to hear yada yada yada. He's like, I was listening to such and such such and such before you pick me up. Turn the radio on. I'm like, hey Dub, there's no radio in it. What kind of bands don't have a radio in it? But yeah, man, you know, just memories. But one story him telling me about the neighborhood. And mind you, I think at this time he was in the 70s when we were having these conversations, and he said when I was growing up, and we would go, he's like the Jews had all the stores around here. He said a lot of times people didn't have enough money to get by, so they would get credit. He says, but when I would go in the store as a child, he said the guy would say, I like you. And he said, one day I just had to ask him why he said he liked me. And he said, because you count your change. And throughout the story, he wound up telling me, he said back then, he said a lot of our people couldn't count.
Right.
I was like, wow.